And now our series, Secrets in Your Food. We think we're going to surprise you this morning. America has something in its food that much of Japan and Europe object to or require strict labeling about. What is it? Genetically modified food. It's already here. In fact, 75% of all processed food in the U.S. contains ingredients from genetically modified crops. And consumer correspondent Elizabeth Leamy is here. She's going to take a look at what you're eating right now, what the safety status is right now.
It's pretty confusing, let me tell you. Advocates say genetically modified biotech food is perfectly safe. Critics say it's food that's been fooled around with. Whether you find it appetizing or appalling, one thing is for sure. Americans are eating more and more of it. Attention shoppers, you can search the aisles, you can scour the shelves, but you'll have trouble avoiding genetically modified ingredients. The food industry itself says if the product has corn or soybeans in it, and most processed foods do, it's probably been genetically modified. Even so, many shoppers we talked to had no idea they're already eating the food of the future. Do you eat genetically modified food now?
As far as I know, I don't.
Would it bother you to eat or feed to your daughter genetically modified food?
Actually, it would.
Cynthia Hatch says she'd rather not serve her family biotech ingredients. And do you eat these cookies here? Because guess what?
Yes.
These probably contain genetically modified ingredients. Biotech crops are created by taking genes from one organism and inserting them into another. That gives the plant traits that make it easier to grow or harvest. Protests have moved from the streets to the internet.
By doing so, you'll also be taking part in the largest genetically engineered food experiment in history.
We've been eating biotech food for a decade, but some people still wonder whether it's safe.
They're serving up new and inadequately tested combinations of DNA never before eaten by human beings.
A very different view from the food industry.
If it wasn't safe for me to grow and for my family to consume, I wouldn't grow it.
We would not be using those ingredients unless the authorities had evaluated them and determined them to be safe.
Activist groups disagree.
It is really a huge, uncontrolled experiment on the American people.
The Center for Food Safety says at the very least, genetically modified food should be labeled.
If we saw the label, we'd start asking the questions that we need to ask. Are they safe? Are they good for our children? Are they safe in the environment?
The center says labeling modified foods would make it possible to identify theoretical health threats like allergic reactions.
When we see the label and a child should get ill, we'll be able to connect the product to the illness, and our health professionals can begin to trace potential illnesses coming from these foods.
A 2003 ABC News poll indicates most Americans want genetically modified food to be labeled.
I read the ingredients, and I would like to know what's in there. So it's very important to me to have everything labeled.
The grocery industry concedes labeling might scare consumers, even though they say it shouldn't. Is there a fear that if genetically modified food is labeled, people will say, forget it, I'm not buying it?
Yeah, certainly that could happen. There are people that have a concern about genetically modified foods.
Back at the supermarket, even some shoppers who don't mind eating genetically modified food say it should be labeled.
I think people have a right to know what they're putting into their bodies.
Currently, there are no genetically modified meat, poultry, dairy, or vegetable products on the market. A biotech salmon is being developed but hasn't been approved yet. And we've just learned in the last few days that modified rice that wasn't meant for commercial use has now been found in the human food supply.
You know, I was shocked that we're already eating genetically. Did you all know that we were eating it? You were shocked.
I didn't
too.
realize till I started researching
Tell us
the
the kinds of things, the processed foods that we can count on as not being genetically
Well, since
modified.
most corn is genetically modified, what you can do is avoid standard corn products and look for something that says 100% organic. Let me tell you, they are hard to find.
100% organic.
Instead of corn flakes, go for a wheat product. Wheat is not yet genetically modified. So that's an idea. Skip the corn oil and canola oil. Those are most likely modified, but olives are not yet biotech engineered.
And quickly?
And even with juice, this has corn syrup in it. Get a juice that's unsweetened or sweetened with sugar instead.